Hi, everybody. David Nour. Want to welcome you back to another In Conversation. I'm elated to be joined by someone I've known for a few years and admired from a distance. And if it comes up on my calendar that he's speaking somewhere, I'm going to do my darndest to get there because there's always nuggets you gather. Mark Roberge is joining us. Hello, Mark.
Hey, David, thank you for those kind words. I appreciate that.
It is always good to see you. Thanks for making the time. For our audience, we're live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on X. And we're going to talk about Mark's latest book, The Science of Scaling. Now, again, he was instrumental. He got the word out, the thing in advance, and again for the audience, this is the book. Highly recommended. We got the book out. I grabbed the copy. Then I want to heard him speak a couple of times. Sarah Radcliffe, our VP of Marketing, and likewise has heard Mark present, I think, at Southbound. And Mark, you're going to love this. I brought excerpts in to our own team, and we spend the whole morning on LIRs. And we have coalesced the entire team on LIRs, and for the audience, we'll talk about that. But again, let me start by highly recommending the book. I want to talk about.
Hey, thank you, David. And just to tease it out there, first off, all the proceeds are donated to mental health, and I know we're going to get to that and why and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for the support and for the community if you do support it. And then just to frame the highest level, and then David, we can get into specifics. This is cool with the excerpts. We're in a moment of first principles right now as we reinvent every field with an AI era. And it's just we're in every first phase of this, we mess up a lot of things because we don't truly extract things down to its studs and first principles. And that was really the intent here. It's crazy how many classes we have on rigorous frameworks and how to accrue and recognize revenue, but we don't have the same rigorous frameworks on how to scale it. And LIR is just one example, PMF, ICP, proper forecasting. That's really what the book does. It attempts, over 10 years I've been working on this. I'm whether you're selling tractors in Brazil, pharmaceuticals in Japan, or AI tools in Silicon Valley, I believe there are a set of formulas and first principles frameworks on go-to-market scaling. And that's really what the book gets at as we enter this AI era, so we can build the models properly. So thank you, David.
My pleasure. And what I love about this is, I don't know if you remember, but Randy Seidel and I interviewed you for the Sales Community podcast. Look at the date, 21.
Crazy.
So this is not a concept you just rolled out of bed and decided to write about.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. It's crazy you brought that. So yeah, I mean, the backstory is I never intend to write a book. What I do is I'm fortunate to be invited to a lot of different speaking situations like this. And sometimes there are some large in-person speaking situations that I do annually, like South by Southwest and SaaStr and all these types of things. And I like to use those moments to just reflect on what's been happening the last year so I can come to the table with something fairly unique for the community. So I've done that 25 times over the last 10 years. And this one I did in 2019 for Jason Lemkin at SaaStr. And it just happened to go viral more than all the others. And people kept asking me to ask. And it was really just this is the primary reason I'm seeing good products and good technical founders fail unnecessarily, which is just the timing and the pacing of scaling. And that's how it happened. And so I just kept speaking about it, kept writing about it. We kind of started this VC firm around it 8 years ago. And then Stanford asked me to publish it, and I had a cause behind it. And that's how these come about. So you're right, David. That's how it comes about. It's I didn't wake up last summer and be I should write a book. These things, they kind of present themselves in that medium.
Love it. So, and you would love, I often coach people, especially with my own books. You're not reading a novel, be an active reader. So I got to show you my book, my Science of Scaling book at some point. Mark, highlighted, and pages are earmarked, and I've got, don't laugh. I've got 3-4 different colored pens that I'm okay.
What does it mean? What do the colors mean?
This and by the way, I'm up to 7 pages of notes in my iPad of Yeah,
That's
dig
funny.
more into this. So there's three aspects, and again, I would encourage the audience to pick up your own copy, dig into it, because I think you're going to find different things that are relevant to you depending on your role, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But I want to talk about three critical aspects. One of them, which is scaling readiness versus scaling pressure. You argue that founders should use data, not gut feel, not intuition, not direction of the wind today, to determine readiness for scale. But isn't intuition often what creates breakthrough before the data exists? So, where do you draw the line between founders' conviction and empirical data?
Yeah, it's great. I just think if we baseline ourselves, like when do people decide to scale? It's a lot more like this than it should be. It's like when someone gives me money too, when I have product market fit and like, product market fit is a great term. Probably goes back to the lean startup and Eric Ries. And that was a breakthrough moment 25 years ago for our ecosystem to build hand in hand with customers. But even the term product market fit, like people don't have a consistent universal definition. And so like we just need to really think about when to scale. And the first step, like with regard to product market fit, the mistake people often make is they'll say, oh, it's when I have 10 customers. It's when I have 500,000 in revenue. It's when I have 100 inbound leads a month. I think those are very, very bad definitions. And that's what most people say. Because I'll follow up and say, okay, cool. Let's say you have all three. Let's say you have 100 customers, 500,000 in revenue, and 100 inbound leads. But if half of your customers are using your product and stop using it, do you have product market fit? And most founders would be like, no, but I'll just listen to why they're leaving and adapt my products, accordingly.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, well, how you know when you have product market fit? And they'll be like, when they don't churn anymore. And I'd be like, exactly. So product market fit, I would describe it qualitatively as you consistently generate the value that you promised in the sales process.
Mm.
And the best measure is retention. So that there's just some rooting first principles there on like, that's what we're looking for. Now, the timing of this, to your point, David, there's this perfect answer internally, which we'll get to, which is like you have to achieve product market fit and go to market fit before you scale. However, the lines that you draw on like whether half your customers are seeing value or 90% are seeing value, that determines on the blitz scale of risk of your category. And that's a very real thing today with the oversaturated capital. So if you're building AI for customer support teams, you are in a heavily blitz scale risk category. There are a lot of well-funded people. You have to go sooner. You can't wait till 90% of your customers are seeing value. You have to like take risks and go and kind of build the plan while you're flying it. Versus we have a company that's bringing like cloud software to airports. There's two massive incumbents in the 70s that are worth $20 billion. It's not nearly as competitive as that other category I just described. There's no risk. There's no tolerance for bugs. You can't have bugs in airport software. So they're going to wait. They're going to wait till 90% of customers are seeing value to call success on product market fit and move into the scale mode. So that's a little thing of like, there is a rigorous internal data-driven process to assess how ready you are for scale. And the line that you draw depends on the blitz scale risk of your category.
So I love that the rigor and the data with which you presented. And I got to tell you that the whole argument of, look, retention is a lagging indicator. It's not going to show up for a year from now.
Yes.
You got to get ahead of it. And for the
Yes.
audience, as I mentioned, I got our engineering team together for an entire morning. And we talked about what is that event? What has to happen for us to know these customers we're trying to attract and they've paid us are in fact getting value from it and are using it on a consistent basis. So many iconic companies, Mark, I think you would agree, I love the airport technology one. They looked irrational before they looked inevitable. So If Amazon, Tesla, Airbnb, any of these had waited for that perfect readiness signal, including the data, might they have grown more slowly or lost the market entirely? So because I know you believe
Exactly.
in a window of opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is not about going slower. This, I would say half of the founders I meet are going, they're waiting too long and they're going too slow.
Mm,
Um, some of this is geographically correlated. I find it more often in, say, Canada and Europe that
mm.
that's happening. And then there are the other half of founders are going too early and going too fast, and they're just accelerating their path to bankruptcy. And they built a cool, awesome, the best product, but they're going to lose because of what they were doing. And that's often seen in like Silicon Valley. And again, like it depends on, again, on the blitz scale risk of your category too. But you just you have to measure the leading indicator of retention. It is the definition of quantifying whether your customers are seeing value. I just can't see a company where they shouldn't be measuring whether their customers are seeing value from their product. And we don't. I get these board decks of 79 slides, and they're not a single slide about the engagement of the customers with the product.
And again, I'll bring it up in a second, but I had our investor advisor board meeting yesterday, and there's an entire slide on this LIR. For our audience, if you're just joining us, Mark Roberge is my guest, author of a brand new book called Science of Scaling, founding CRO at HubSpot, now runs, amongst other things, Stage 2 Capital. And we're talking about a more disciplined, and again, this first critical aspect is scaling readiness versus scaling pressure. And there's a central argument in the book that companies scale prematurely because of external pressures. A lot of times investors, competitors, fundraising. We've both seen, companies that raise capital, internal or external, and then they go hog wild on scaling. And it's just, you can see it's premature, but even sometimes a media narrative that overrides evidence-based readiness. And I think that's a big part that Mark conveys that's really compelling. But I like reframing scale as something that must be earned through measurable proof points rather than ambition alone. So you challenge founders to quantify product market fit. Is there a danger of overqualifying that causes them to miss opportunities that aren't measurable yet?
Yeah, so let's just frame that for a second. So David's kind of alluded, we've already kind of walked through that. I strongly recommend people root product market fit in retention and not sales. And David also mentioned that retention is a lagging indicator. So you have to create your leading indicator of retention, what David's company is doing right now. And basically the work frames it for folks. It's P% of customers do e-event every T time. So a very famous example on the B2B software arena from last decade is Slack, where it's 70% of customers send 2,000 team messages every month, right? So that's a beautiful foundation of a North Star when a technical team transitions to commercializing the product. Don't make the North Star $1 million in revenue. Don't make the North Star 100 customers. Make the North Star 80% of customers send 2,000 team messages every month. That's for Slack. For HubSpot, it was 80% of customers use 5 or more features in the platform, right? So there's all this, we can discuss like what David's is, or like there's this whole thing about like, how do you choose that? And we can walk through that. Now to your point, David, do you run the risk that you miss certain value creations by being that rigorous? And as time progresses, you can actually statistically study whether you picked the right one, right? So like you can actually a year later look back on the customers who are now a year old, that you might have 40 of them. And you can look at the people that were always hitting the LAR versus the ones that were not. And if the ones that were always hitting the LAR have massive retention and the ones that were not have massive churn, you have it right. But if it's not, you have to change it. It's a different value. There's a different value going on. And the good news is most companies are sitting on a ton of user logs that you can just spend the week running. We did this at HubSpot when we were at 10 million in revenue. We ran like 57 permutations. Is it the number of contacts, the number of leads, the number of features? It just so happened that using 5 or more features was the strongest correlation to retention. So like, yes, you might get it wrong, David. And if you do, a year later, you can run a more formal statistical analysis to figure out where the value resides. Now, there's 2 things I want to point out. First off, don't over obsess in the beginning. Lock yourself in a room for 2 hours with the people that need to be involved and come out with the decision. As CEO, say, this is my decision. All of your peers are setting up their North Star around customers and revenue. You are setting up around value. If you pick the wrong value measure, who cares? It's at least a value measure. Okay. So just lock yourself in a room for 2 hours and just run with it. Go ahead.
Where was this book 2 years ago? I tell no lies for our audience. This is a deck that I put together for our investors and board members. And again, Mark, you're going to love the fact that, again, not just bringing up the book, but, you know, and I love the stair-stepping approach that you talk about in LIR. So we started with what percentage of our install base logs in daily to use the platform. And for the audience, Mark is right. You have user logs. The problem is we weren't looking at them. We weren't analyzing them. We weren't, and look at the data that it starts to show. Not, I mean, it's good that user base is growing, but the bottom, right? When the software craps out or functionality doesn't work, people abandon it. And then they go flat because we're not making fast enough changes, but they start to come back when you in fact do pay attention to it. So this is a critical metric, again, for our team to coalesce around. And now engineering and marketing and sales, and it's not just a fly-by-night thing. Oh, that's nice. And it's not a KPI. It's not an OKR. It really is a guiding light of, are we focused on the right things for the right reasons?
Yeah. And you reminded me, David, of my other point on that is, as you're creating it, make sure you're aware of the balance between accuracy and simplicity, right? So what I mean by that is, if we wanted the highest actually statistical correlated number, LIR, it would be this massive and or nested formula. It would be like they send 2,000 CE messages and they're integrated with Slack, or their CRM is set up and they're, you know, like all these things. And that would generate the strongest correlation.
Sure.
But you also have to remember that as we scale, there's a lot of utilizations of this LIR. I'll give you 2. One is it's a much better guide for a CSM in their role, right? So I'm a 26-year-old CSM. I'm joining Avner, and I asked David, what is my job? Most founders are like, generate 100% retention, like generate 110% net dollar retention. That's very hard for a 26-year-old to translate that into what I should do on this call with a customer. Versus this LIR gives you a potential of like, David, what is my job? Your job is to get your customers to send 2,000 team messages every month. Oh, that's way more. But if it's like send 2,000 team messages and hook up with Slack or uses that you lose that, right? The other opportunity that you have here is you can align your sales process with customer value creation by incorporating the LIR into your compensation plan, right? So let's take Slack's example again. Instead of paying the rep, you know, the commission when the customer pays, signs up and pays, you can pay the rep half the commission when the customer signs the contract and pays, and half the commission when the customer has their first month where they send 2,000 team messages. And that's just beautiful, because oftentimes the lack of LIR attainment is not because of the product onboarding or CSM behavior. It's because of the way the rep sold the deal. And when you incorporate that in the compensation, it creates this beautiful functional alignment around massive customer value creation.
You're gonna love this. I've long, Mark, coached people. You want better answers, start asking better questions.
Yeah.
If
Nice.
our LIR is what percentage of our customers or users are logging in daily, I'm
Yep.
actually bringing that up as part of my discovery. What
Right.
value do you need to see to log into a platform daily?
Mm-hmm.
And if you understand that value, what is it that they're after? What is it they're looking for? Ideally, that's what you're building, and that's what
Exactly.
draws them in. Of, oh, there's that classic FOMO of, if I don't log in daily, I'm gonna miss something. And now
Yes.
it becomes habitual of, that's where I'm going to get value from. So move on with me to, let's talk about the critical aspect number 2 that I kind of captured in my notes, which is product market fit doesn't just have to be quantified. You got to really elevate the scaling and go to market design. And specifically by that, I mean, I read and you argue that premature sales hiring
Mm-hmm.
destroys value, right? As I'm building this thing, I want to add people. A whole lot of venture-backed companies are under this pressure to demonstrate growth immediately after a raise. And you talk about that. You talk about examples and stories. And how should founders manage the tension between that investor expectation for that hockey stick growth and this operational reality you put in place of, look, it's silly to do that if we don't consistently grow that LIR, if we don't consistently ensure that product market fit is not just one and done, but it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah, I mean, you basically educate the board and investors on the methodology. I mean, you can root it in the sense of like, all right, should we sell 100 customers before we have a product in market? Believe it or not, in the 80s, we did that.
Don't confuse selling and delivery.
So, vaporware, we called it. All right. So like, this is really one of the huge values that the lean startup work did for us, is we don't do that anymore. Like, most VCs and founders are trained to know that we have to like develop an MVP hand in hand with a handful of customers. And then, so I think most VCs would agree, I'm not going to advise my companies to sell $1 million of contracts to 100 customers before we have a working product. Right? It's the similar thought process from whether we have a working LIR. Like, how do we know we have a working product? That is the LIR. That is product market fit. So you can have that narrative. And then there's the narrative around the pace of scale. I think really just thinking about scaling as a pacing as opposed to lump sum hiring gets you almost all the way there. Okay. And unfortunately, most folks take a lump sum hiring approach, whether you just did a fundraise. And I know what happens. It's like, I'm a founder, I'm negotiating with the VC. They want to invest 10 million at 50 million valuation. I want them to invest 10 million, $100 million valuation. So we have this valuation negotiation to lower the amount, increase the equity that I own, et cetera, and decrease dilution. So, sometimes the founder wins that argument because they present this like hockey stick growth, right? They say they're going to go from 2 million to 12 million in the next year, and then they get money. And so then they're like, shit, now I got to do it. You know what I mean? Like, and so what they typically say, okay, like, each rep's going to do 800,000 and I need to hire 12 reps and I'm going to do that next week. And that's when you destroy a company, because like, there's a whole bunch of new operational flywheels that need to occur in terms of recruiting and ramping and management and onboarding and feeding them with demand gen, whatever, that need to be scaled up in order to successfully absorb, 12 reps in a week. And so the way you do it is you change it from 12 reps in the week to how many per month. So instead of hiring 12 reps at the beginning of a fiscal year to hit a plan, or 12 reps right after a Series B investment, just start hiring like 4 reps a month, right? And that allows you to build these recruiting flywheels, these ramping. It's something that you never turn off. And it also gives you the opportunity to throttle up or down depending on the signals of the business. So that's how you optimize scale for what your business is capable of. And you just look at these lead indicators of retention and lead indicators of unit economics. So that's the conversation I have in every board meeting is I'm like, okay, good job, 110% of plan. We're going to hire another 12 reps this quarter, and we'll be reconvening on July 20th to go over the Q2 numbers. Here's what I want us to discuss and decide as a board and founding team. What will we see on July 20th that would cause us to accelerate our hiring in Q3? Not hire 12 reps, but hire 20 reps. What would we see in the Q2 results that would cause us to stay the same? Hire 12 reps. And what would we see in the Q2 results that would cause us to slow down, because by hiring the 12 reps, we're just going to accelerate ourselves to bankruptcy, and we need to fix it and then get back on track. And so usually there's 3 dimensions of that conversation. There's a demand gen level, there's a demand to close level, and then there's a customer value creation level. So like sales qualified opportunities per rep, rep attainment, and then LIR attainment, right? So we just say like green, yellow, red. And if they're all green, we'll accelerate in Q3. If they're green and yellow, we'll stay the same. And if any of them are red, we got to diagnose, fix it, and get back on track, hopefully in a week, right? But like, let's not because normally the discussion, David, you've been in the meeting, you show up on July 20th, you missed the number by 20%, and the board's like, hire more reps and catch up. And that's when it's over. That's when you're accelerating the bankruptcy. Exactly. Like you're accelerating yourself to bankruptcy. And you could have had a great product, that product that you got a PhD on and spent 5 years building actually becomes something great, as opposed to going bankrupt because of just lack of good scaling science.
Again, for our audience, if you just joined us, Mark Roberge is my guest. We're talking about his new book, The Science of Scaling. And again, I wish, I would say this whether he's here or not, I wish I had this book 2 years ago. When you start to really think about what does that scale look like? Why am I building what I'm building? How is it beyond? The other thing, Mark, I found beyond what people say, what they do, so that the event, the activity is an indication of their actions, and they see that value versus, yeah, love it, give me more of it. Well, are you in fact acting on it? Because I can go build it, but if you don't see value in it, you're not going to use it, you're not going to see it, it's not going to be nearly as impactful. My question of you is on category defining, category creating companies where there's no historical benchmark. How do you account for? What does that evidence-based scaling look like for those? Is it still LIR?
Definitely. I mean, like, this is really just quantifying your perception of value. Like, let's look at Harvey in legal AI. Like, their value is that these lawyers, and you kind of alluded to this, these value metrics sometimes have a maturity model based on the maturity of your startup. And you've done it very well here, David, where you first start out with, the basic one is just do they set it up? It's kind of like shocking how often we can't even get it set up. Right. So if we look at like a new evangelism like Harvey, it's in, AI for lawyers to be able to accelerate, all the back, the behind the scenes, non-client facing things that they do. You're processing documents, you're creating documents, et cetera. How many of the lawyers are just setting this up and trying it? Then you can graduate to an engagement one. So like, how many use it weekly? How many use it daily? How many documents does each one use to create or process, right? Then you don't have to, but you could graduate to an outcome-based one. So like, there's probably like a utilization number at lawyers. Like what percent of my time am I billing versus not? And so like, that's where we like, what is how much has the utilization gone up, right? You don't have to, but you can measure all 3. So like, I don't know, I can't think of a startup, even one that's evangelizing like a Harvey, like an OpenAI, like an Anthropic, where value creation for customers is not important and value creation for customers not measurable. I just can't think of it.
I do have a question of you. I've got a couple of friends, and you and I know, similar friends that, a CRO that walks into an environment where they inherit already scaling inefficiencies, right? Not quite maybe your accelerated path to bankruptcy, but what's the first metric you'd examine to determine whether that growth is healthy or artificially subsidized?
Usually it ends up being in the value piece. I hate to be redundant, but it's like that because you do see that a lot. I mean, I don't have evidence of this. That it might be happening a little bit of OpenAI. Like I do know that, they obviously brought on a very fancy chief revenue officer 9 months ago from Salesforce. She was CEO of Slack. Great, unbelievable executor, by the way. And they've tripled the size of the sales team since then. That's obviously going to massively increase revenue. Obviously, like you just have tons of, is it healthy revenue? Like, and health is measured in two ways. Like, is it going to retain LTV? And then is it profitable? Like, what was the cost of that revenue? And I think I just saw an article that says that it came at a high cost, like, cost $2 to get $1 of revenue type of thing. And that's fine. Like they're just playing a strategy. I think they're trying to like really win the consumer game. And sometimes you're taking a loss leader to get there. I'm not saying it's crazy. I mean, it's one of the best companies of the history of tech. But yeah, I mean, like you have to measure both the LTV health and you have to measure the unit economics. And I talk about that as go-to-market fit. And then the last piece is you need to make sure that there's a sustainable moat around that revenue as well. And that's the biggest concern in what's happening in the AI community right now is there is the fastest revenue growth we've ever seen across these AI native startups. But there's a lot of question marks about whether that revenue is high LTV and durable, meaning is there a moat around it or will it be like completely eliminated when Claude releases its next release next month, right? So like, there's just not a big enough. I do think we'll look back on this moment and kind of say like that was a moment where a lot of founders and investors were duped by revenue growth at the expense of LTV, high LTV and high durability, and they should have had a higher lens on LTV and durability.
It reminds me in some ways of COVID, where our spend was limited, and you saw a lot of COVID-based growth. I reminded a lot of executives, don't confuse COVID kind of driven growth with forever growth, right? And
it's crazy that it just happened 5 years ago. It's not like if COVID didn't happen, we would have had to go all the way back to say 2001 and remember the moments where everybody was quitting their fancy jobs to go to these .com companies. It was all about clicks and eyeballs. Like the brick and mortar was dead. And as long as you had a lot of eyeballs, and that was a tough one because there wasn't even revenue. And it was also a tough one because these companies actually went public and the retail investors bought it. And that caused a massive global recession when people figured out that this wasn't real.
Yeah.
And so like that is this classic Gartner curve. Like you're at the peak, you don't really know what it is. You think it's clicks and stuff, and then it crashes and everyone's like, internet's a fad. And then you actually build real companies. That's what happens. And lots of people are arguing that's where we're in right now is like everyone's getting fooled by these like AR crazy revenue growth stuff, but it's not high LTV, it's not durability. The public markets will be the judge and jury in Q4 when some of them start to go out. And if they don't clear their last valuation, things can get crashed pretty hard. Like, I don't know. And there's arguments on both sides, right? But that's what they're saying.
From a market standpoint, you're seeing a lot of AI pilots go away after 90 days because they didn't deliver the value.
Right. And that's why I'm actually just about to publish an article. I was in SF last week and literally shook hands with like 179 founders and AI go-to-market people to like in group meetings and lunches and that kind of stuff, just to like continue to explore where the frontier is right now. And there's a cool frontier I don't think has been talked about a lot yet is the replacement of proof of concept with proof of outcome, to your point, David, where it's like, we've often used proof of concept to get over a buyer's objection around technical feasibility. It's like, oh, I get it. Why don't we do this? Let's implement it, proof of concept or a pilot, whatever, and just make sure it technically works. Great. Let's do it. And then we can clearly write that if this occurs After 90 days, then you'll transition to a full-time contract. And if it doesn't, you get your money back. Same thing with proof of outcome today. It's like, hey, like, okay, I understand you don't really think that this is going to increase the utilization of your lawyers. Let's pick like let's go to the New York office. Let's do a pilot. Let's do a pilot with 80 lawyers. And if utilization goes up by 10%, you convert to a full-time contract. If it doesn't, I'll give you your money back.
So I love the SF meet and greet. The startup ecosystem celebrates speed. Your framework, and I'm going to come back to something you said, really emphasizes discipline. How do you think about romanticizing that velocity at the expense of durability, right? So a lot of conversations right now, just building what, again, and from an investor lens, I mean, I'm curious about that, but also what I love about your background is you've been an operator. So an investor says, your growth is not fast enough. We need to see, right, the hockey stick versus, guys, I'm trying to make sure that the value that we promise, Mark, you've heard me talk about this, relationships go bad with misaligned expectations. If I'm promising a value to this prospect, I want to make sure I love that. And we're going to change our lens as well on the proof of outcome. The outcome is there and it's there. That takes time. How do you, right? Again, the velocity at the expense of durability.
Yeah. You just have to have a durability moat vision. And so like the highest level description of the methodology, which we've kind of like grabbed each piece, is product market fit, then go to market fit, then growth and moat. I could have left moat out. I tried to be as wordsmith as possible, but it has to be in there. And it just means like by putting it at growth and moat, you don't really like build your moat usually on the first day. Like you're building the MVP, but you need it's kind of like a design big, start small vision. And you have to have a vision for how a moat will evolve over time. And sometimes maximum growth and maximum moat development are at odds with each other. And you just, as a CEO, have to find the balance between them. I don't know if there's necessarily a formula, but I can give you like, this is a beautiful moment where it's a start small, like design big, start small. Because it's one of those things where like the way that the problem you solve today is going to be solved in 5 years is way different, but the tech isn't capable of doing it that way yet. And the market's not ready for that yet. And so you have to figure out a way to like build something that the market's ready for today and the tech is ready for, but also is going to solidify the moat in the future. The best example out there from the prior generational shift was Bezos and Amazon.
Yeah.
Because like in 97, Bezos didn't quit his hedge fund job to become a book salesman. He quit the job because he thought that everybody would buy stuff online, furniture, clothes, food, etc. But he didn't start there because the market wasn't ready and the tech wasn't ready, the whole operational process. He knew he wanted to go there. He knew that was going to be his opportunity. But he actually made a list of 50 products, and books was number one because you didn't have to touch it to know the quality. There's a million new SKUs every year. It's pretty profitable. It's easy to ship. It doesn't break. It was a perfect product. So he started with books. Ironically, number two is music, and Jobs took that one. And so he did that. And in the same time, he built his moat. While all the brick and mortar Walmarts were in these fancy malls and areas, he had these warehouses in super cheap areas. And he had a delivery mechanism to get you the book in 2 days. So that when people were like, you know what, I might buy furniture or clothes.
He'll be here this afternoon.
Walmart was scrambling online and Amazon was like, great, I have it for you tomorrow. Yeah. So that's just a classic example of the moment we're in right now, which is design big, start small. You need a vision for your moat in the future, but like the true creative entrepreneurship right now is how do you gather customers and create revenue today, while at the same time building your moat for the future, knowing that that future vision, the market's not ready and the tech's not ready. It's a beautiful moment for entrepreneurship.
Again, for our audience, if you join
by the way, Sarah Ratcliffe is crushing it. We're watching the comments here, so if you are watching, just like throw them in there. It's great, and everybody throw out your questions and we'll react. Sorry, David.
Absolutely. No. I was going to say exactly the same thing. So our audience, if you just joined us, Mark Roberge, Stage 2 Capital, brand new book, Science of Scaling, highly recommended. And Sarah, yeah, she's asking some fantastic questions. So obviously a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is that the relationship, the connection, the human element in all this AI push. Do you think the metric-driven approach may incentivize underinvesting in the relationship?
Underinvesting in like the buyer relationship or the sales relationship? Yes. It's funny that the article I'm writing right now too, like one of the main themes I saw was almost everything in go-to-market is suffering in terms of like outbound content, advertising, sales velocity, close rates. The only thing that is actually creating efficiency is in person. And so like, that's kind of interesting. Both on the demand gen side and on the sales, like just the demand to close side and even post sale, right? So like the best performing time and time again, the best performing demand gen sequences I've been seeing from companies is a really good like creative trade show approach, like intimate peer dinners, which you can do every day. Like these are fairly scalable things.
Sure.
Peer dinners around like not a vendor assessment, but like a AI strategy. So that's very interesting. And then we're going the opposite in terms of what justifies an in-person meeting. I think like over the last 20 years, we went from like anything under 20K was on Zoom and anything over 20K was in person. And then we pushed it to 50K and then we pushed it to 100K. And then now we're doing COVID blew it out. I mean, $1 million deals over Zoom.
Yeah.
Now it's going back. Like anything over 100K go in person. Anything over 50K go in person. And for two reasons. One is like, it's just allowing you to like separate through the noise. And the other reason was the biggest risk with in-person was just opportunity cost of time. But reps are on planes running agents and doing 200 emails. So there's no loss in productivity. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the intimate, high touch in-person meeting with no impact on general productivity.
Is LIR relevant to a service business? And that's one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Two, we've been talking a lot about startups and investors, and talk about how your science of scaling applies to a large enterprise and an initiative or a new campaign, new product launch, new reorg.
Yeah, sure.
Drive.
Sure.
So change that lens from a startup world to enterprise, and then talk about LIR in the service business.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely applicable to services. My wealth manager's LIR is where they log into the online portal every month, because it's just like the value of like just the strategies that they're doing, et cetera. Consultancies are actually pretty good about it because they typically are upfront on the statement of work. Like the SOW is just a beautiful documentation of the value expectations and the timeline on servicing them. So like they're almost like it's just all built into a lot of these services. Accounting firms, absolutely. What was their tax savings had they not used you? You know what I mean? Like these are all it's hard. Again, it's whether it's services or software, you still need to create value for customers.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to it, large enterprises, first off, like if you are already into the growth stage, it's not too late to set up your LIR. HubSpot does $2 billion a year in revenue and still measures their LIR because I have never seen a company over a 10-year period that didn't lose product market fit. like tech changes, competitive landscape changes, like market sentiment changes. So if you're waiting to measure your annual retention to know, then you're operating your business 9 months late, right? So like it's never too late to set it up. And then the other thing is these same arguments around inappropriate like scale timing and pacing, whether you're going too slow or too fast or too early or too late. This happens in large organizations as well, because they're always bringing new products to market and they're always bringing existing products to new markets. And I've done this a million times with our portfolio and large companies, et cetera. They all get overly cocky that it's just going to work. I've seen so many people be like, okay, we're launching our new AI product and we're going to launch it at the June customer event. So it's October now. Marketing, change the website, product, get it built, sales, train all 700 reps. And so there's this like huge amount of perceived work that's happening. And then they launch it in June and it's not quite right. Like the message isn't quite right. The product features have some gaps. It's not bad. They'll get there over the next 6 months, but the company really has a bad couple quarters because they just spent 30% of their sales capacity on a product that doesn't even have product market fit yet. We don't even know how to sell. Had they just said, we're going to launch our new AI product, let's create this launch team of 17 engineers, a PM, designer, 2 salespeople, 1 CSM, and a marketer. Let's put them in the Switzerland office and let's have them as quickly as possible achieve product market fit through the LIR analysis and achieve go-to-market fit through the unit economics analysis and get it ready. And hopefully they can have it done in a month, but it could take 6 months. But at least we know where we're trying to get to. And once they have it, then we can train the 700 reps. Had they just done that, they would have hit the profit expectations of the street. But instead, they get cocky.
The miles per gallon, it's the operational efficiency, it's the lean startup, right? Concept of let's go test this. So I have a follow-up question on Mark, the leadership. I'm going to give you 2 options: extraordinary product market fit and mediocre leadership, or exceptional leadership and moderate product market fit. Which one do you bet on?
Leadership for sure. Because it always comes down to the leadership and the founders. You never know if you're going to hit it or not. It's really how you respond, how bold you are, how you manage adversity. This is the thing that Halligan did best by watching him closely compared to any other founder that I know, is he always recognized, regardless of the size of the business, when the business was at serious risk and when a bold decision was needed. I see a lot of founders scale to 10 million, to 20 million, and they go from making bold, quick decisions to protecting what they have.
Right.
But dude, you're 20 mil. You don't have anything yet. If a new competitor comes on and they start eating to your market share, you have to put the company on the line. And even the big companies have to put themselves on the line right now. And a lot of them aren't going to have the guts to do it. And some of it's just the misalignment of individual motivations. You have a lot of CEOs of large SaaS incumbents that don't intend to be there for 7 years. They need to do another 18 months and retire. So if you're going to do that, are you really going to want to make the really tough call to get the AI product out there and disrupt your business, have revenue go down, your stock price tanks, and you have to gut it through and keep telling the story and keep telling the employees and do the right thing and cannibalize your business and come out the other end? Never. A lot of the leaders, they're not incented to do that. They're 18 months from retirement.
Yeah, it's the playing not to lose versus playing to win and remain relevant. So I got to, one of the things I've noticed in writing my books is I stumble on either ideas for the second edition or ideas for the next book. What have you learned about science of scaling that you hadn't thought about when you wrote the book?
Well, I think like go to market as a field is going to look very different in 10 years.
How
And I
so?
think that's just how the role of agents, AI agents. Um, and it's like I still feel like we only can see 10% of it today. So that's where I'm very interested in. By using the science of scaling frameworks, I can make sure I look through these from a first principles lens. But I don't know if like buyer agents are buying from seller agents in 10 years and for all deal sizes. My guess would be my guess is like I actually wrote about this in the appendix of the book, and I still feel this way, that I think go to market will evolve through 4 phases, and that's probably what I am writing about online, and if a book surfaces, I think it's moving so fast that you have to be confident in longevity of a concept to actually wanna write a book be useful. So I don't know if there's enough conviction and longevity of a concept right now there. But, like, phase 1 that we're in right now is, um, AI takes away all of the non-selling time, right? So selling time is, like, the percentage of a week that a rep is face to face with a buyer. Historically, best in class has been about 30%. By the end of the year, best in class will be 75%. And that's the opportunity that we have right now with today's AI. We're starting to see early signs of seller agents. So in product-led growth funnels, I think next year, maybe in SMB funnels, we'll have more agents like avatars actually selling the deals. Um, we're seeing a little evidence of buyer agents. You know, if you're doing a big ERP purchase for a large global company, there's a 100-person committee that's assembled to do that. That committee is riddled with politics. That committee is riddled with like selfish desires. AI would do a better job of assessing the needs of the organization and properly prioritizing them. And today the purchase is made by which vendor gave them Taylor Swift tickets and not who the best vendor is. So like you get rid of that as well. And then I think finally, and you're starting to see a little evidence of this, you could start to see organizations that don't even have functions. They don't have finance, product engineering, sales, or marketing. They have a GM of a buyer type, like a GM of healthcare, a GM of finance. And AI is so good that it elevates that athletic GM to do all the roles themselves. They can do the product development, they can do the distribution, they can do the financial accounting without departmental teams. That gets pretty cool. But again, this is Star Trek, David. I don't know.
I love it. Again, for our audience, if you missed this session, you missed a good one. Mark Roberge, founding CRO at HubSpot, now runs Stage 2 Capital, amongst other things, teaches at Harvard Business School. The new book is The Science of Scaling, and it is very much a disciplined, data-driven approach to when to scale, how to scale, ensure the durability of that scale. And I can't recommend it enough. As I mentioned, our entire
David, if I could also just
please,
at the end here, the cause, all the book proceeds are donated to mental health.
love that.
The last book was donated to a different cause. The reason for that for me today is partially personal and partially an observation. The personal reason is mental health has played a massive role in my life. I've been a caretaker and I've also been a patient. Um, it's many people have to suffer in silence because we still have a stigma. Um, if you find out that someone you're interviewing recovered from cancer 10 years ago, you probably elevate your perception of them. If you found out they recovered from mental health, you probably have concerns. It's not really fair. They're both genetic in most cases and a disease. And so oftentimes folks have to suffer in silence. I've been blessed with certain resume points that people respect so I can be a little more vulnerable. And that is part of the reason for the donation. The other reason is it's kind of crazy how much effort, talent, capital is going into building AI and not helping society adapt. I don't think the tech community can delegate this to Washington or academia. They're just not close enough to it. I think we as technicians need to better balance like our building with our societal assistance. And this is my little thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Everyone needs to do a little thing. This is my little thing for now. I'll do more later, but I hope that people can, find time in their 996 Silicon Valley jobs to not just personally try to benefit from this, but also help society adapt.
And I wasn't kidding when I said you're not reading a novel. You're reading something that is actionable, that is relevant, that is right. So things that really move you in a meaningful way. And I did this with a team, and I would encourage the audience. The insights from the book are profoundly more impactful if you find ways to apply them. If you find ways to bring this into your own efforts, into your own kind of initiatives, a lot of great insights into, especially again, where we are in building Avneer and building and growing this, and making sure that the whole team, like I said, understands it, believes in it, coalesces their efforts around it. It has become a daily conversation in our daily stand-ups. It has become a part of my, discovery with prospective clients. It's Sarah on our team building campaigns and the new website. So Mark, thank you. Thank you for the research. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for sharing the wisdom. And again, for our audience, I love these in conversations because again, I learn as much from them as I think you do. I'd encourage you to, if you don't follow us, Avneer is pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm as well. I post 8 a.m. Eastern every day and share insights on relationships, on lasting change, and on real elevation. So on behalf of Mark, thanks, and our team, Mark, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here, and appreciate the insights. And everybody, will see you on the next episode of In Conversation with Nour. Thanks, everybody. Take care. All the best.